Our next session is innovation in funds, and I wanted to start by asking you a polling question. The details will be on the screen behind me. If you go to your app, under polls, the live Q&A in Arena 1 is where we are. And the question, how do you personally feel about artificial intelligence? Excited, not sure, or terrified? Go on, be honest. Excited, not sure, or terrified. So while you fill in the answers there, I'm number 3, I've got to say. Terrified. We're going to introduce our 2 speakers. And it's a wonderful opportunity for you to not only listen to what they have to say, each of them is going to speak for about 20 minutes, just slightly less than that, but there is an opportunity for questions at the end. So please use the app to put those questions through to me. Use these people as your consultants. That's what they're here for. So Samir Shah will speak first. Samir is the Global Head of Digital Advisory at JP Morgan, based in the US. And Dr. Catriona Wallace is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Flamingo AI. Please make them both very welcome. Well, there we are. Look at that, Samir. 58% of your audience are excited, only 28% are not sure, and I didn't even vote, and it's only 14%. So that's a good start. Over to you.
I ought to be scared of that answer, because a couple of years later, you might have a bot standing here and communicating the same speech to you. Good afternoon, all, and thank you for having me here. I am honored to share some of JP Morgan's perspectives on innovation and transformation in financial services and specifically super funds. I want to do 2 things today. Number 1, I want to challenge you on how you think about transformation and innovation in your organizations. Both for the member, but also for the continued competitive advantage and sustainability of your own organization. Number 2, I want to offer a roadmap on how to get started on the process. What ideas to apply, where to seek inspiration, what are examples that we might look to both in financial services, but also outside of financial services as we begin or accelerate many of these journeys in our own organizations. Look, in the last few years, the rise and sophistication of several new technologies, frankly, all at the same time, has been unprecedented. Our lives, both in personal and professional lives, have completely been transformed in this digital era. As an individual, I don't think I go a week without seeing a new report, a new study, a new paper, if you will, on machine learning or cloud or robotics or data science. And frankly, it's often hard to dissect what's real, what's not, where there's smoke and mirrors, and what can deliver tangible value. The tech landscape continues to get very, very busy. There's new technology companies popping up every day to serve the financial services sector. And what's really interesting is big tech, think Google, Microsoft, Market, are also creating products and services that serve all of us and our customers in a fundamentally different manner. These aren't just small companies, these are also large companies that are going after our customers and our business. You know this is real when large global incumbents start to pay attention. Right? Technology wasn't a concern for many of our businesses over the last few years. But when you look at the world's largest bank in us, when you look at the world's largest asset manager, when you look at companies like Alibaba trying to invest heavily in technology, and incumbents start paying attention, you know this is all the more real for our businesses. And then finally, the Australian super fund market is no different. If I think of many of you in the room, if I reflect on the last couple of days and several of you that I've met in your offices, the transformation that's underway in your own organizations is quite rapid and quite interesting in its own way. And all of this is really coming to bear because, frankly, our clients, our customers are redefining what they want from all of us. We're in the midst of a significant reset, if you will. Beyond the generational shift in customers, the technology advances, frankly, the Royal Commission results that we heard about, all of us expect very different functionality in our financial lives. Much of what we have in our personal lives, the simplicity, the ease, the flexibility, the education, the visibility, is what we want in our professional lives as well. We want the simplicity that Google, Netflix, and Uber offer in what our banks, insurance, and super funds can offer. When you think about members in the middle, what members really want is consistent and personalized experiences across many, many different channels. Whether I call you, whether I go on mobile, whether I visit a center and see a person, I'd like to make sure that my experience is consistent. If Netflix can offer me custom recommendations on movies, if Google can offer personalized search results to me, if Amazon can offer suggestions on products I might like based on my previous purchases, how long before clients start to expect this in their financial lives? How long before clients expect more customized, more personalized, and more SMA, separately managed account-like investment products in their own lives? Today's members want advice, education, and engagement. I reflect on the video that we started with earlier in the day. Right? Millennials want to understand. They want to learn. They want to engage. They want to really know what is happening with their money. The experiences that we provide today, whether in traditional or digital means, aren't truly meant to engage the customer. Really engage the customer. We often, all of us, do sort of these check-the-box experiences rather than invite the customer to be part of the journey and to be part of the discussion of how we change. Today's member also wants ease and simplicity. The reality is members don't want complicated graphs. They don't want NAVs on their funds. They don't want a whole bunch of numbers. They don't want 3-year returns, 5-year returns, and dig through 4 pages before they get to an English sentence that explains how their fund is doing. They want simplicity. They want transparency. They want ease of navigation on your sites, on your mobile experiences. In my personal life, if I open a rideshare app, Uber, and if it takes too long, I get frustrated. I shut it down and I open another one. But in my banking life, in my super funds life, I can't do that. So how do we change how we offer members in their lives? And then above all, members also want centricity and integration in what they're getting, right? They want us to approach customer centricity in a completely different way. They want experiences that some of these FANG-type companies, new age technology companies, have been delivering. Right? Uber, the largest taxi company, doesn't have any taxis. Airbnb, the largest reservation chain, doesn't own any hotel rooms. Netflix, who is the largest video streaming company in the world, does not own content just until now. All of these companies began with the customer in the middle and starting to think about what is it that they want and how is it that they deliver that. They designed all their services by answering some of these fundamental questions. But the interesting thing is it's not just these companies. There are also traditional incumbents. The good news for all of us, right? There's also these traditional incumbents that are doing a great job of transforming their own experiences and delivering some of these things. Starbucks has apps that allow you to create personalized coffee drinks, that allow you to talk to bots on these apps, that allow you rewards when you buy more. Dare I say that someday super funds might say, I might give rewards to customers that engage more, that invest more, that invest sooner. How might that change how we work with customers? Domino's. Domino's is a traditional pizza chain in the US and had hundreds of stores all around the country. And about 10 years ago, their CEO announced that they didn't want to be a pizza company that sold online. They wanted to be an e-commerce company that sold pizzas. And over the last 10 years, in 2018, they sold 65% of their pizzas on digital networks. And half of them were done on your mobile phone. So think about the vision, the sustainability that they've taken. And the good news for all of us when we think about how we work with the customer is we already own all these customers. While tech companies are building cool things to really try and get them, we have them, and for the most part, they like us. So how do we continue to fill out our customer centricity promise in a different way? And the reality is this transformation isn't only necessary for our changing customer base. Frankly, I think it's critical for our survival and our continued success. We think about our business quite a bit, and at JP Morgan, we try and follow a lot of these principles that we'll talk about in our day-to-day lives. Right? So think of key questions when you think about your organization. Are you focused on your core? Are you working with the right strategic partners? Are you designing new products? Are you innovating how you work? Are you carrying legacy technology debt? Is the technology infrastructure you have last changed in the 1980s? Are you as efficient as you can be? I remember the video from this morning. Where is my money going? Can somebody help me understand how you're spending my money? Ultimately, are you central to your members' lives? Do they simply think of you as one of the supers that I get when I get a job? Or do you have trust, loyalty, name recognition, branding, and true engagement with customers? Right? We talked about trust earlier. And we talked a lot about competition earlier. We talked about competition with banks and retail funds. What we didn't do is talk about non-traditional competitors who also build trust with customers and someday can fundamentally attack our business model. Who here doesn't think that somewhere in Amazon is a strategy proposal on how to get into wealth management or how to get into retirement planning? They're already in banking, they're already in credit cards, they're already in consumer lending, and this is just the next step for evolution of the world's largest tech company. Amazon leadership has forever talked about one of the most important things they've built in the industry is this notion of trust. Order something on your mobile device today and it'll guaranteed get to you on Friday. Rewind back when Amazon first started, right? So take your mind back about 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, Amazon was a bookstore that said, we're going to sell everything. We're going to show you thousands of products online. We're going to give you lots and lots of choices. We're going to help you pick the right one. You go ahead and input your credit card and give me your financial details or connect your checking account, and I will deliver the product you asked for 100% of the time in 2 days. And for the last decade or more, they delivered time and over again on that promise. The product you want, when you want it, on time, every time. And they've built this notion of trust with the customer online that has transferred over to many, many technology companies. In fact, a recent poll showed that Amazon is one of the most trusted companies all over the world across sectors. 40% of Amazon customers, Amazon has 110, 120 million Prime customers. And 40% of the Amazon customers said they would buy a robo-wealth product for them. They would buy a retirement product from them. 70% of Amazon customers today buy mutual funds. So when you start to think of that overlap, and you think of financial products and financial planning, someday Amazon might get into this. And maybe they don't get into manufacturing. Maybe manufacturing these products or roboing these products, but they will get into distribution. And if they start to distribute these products on a central platform, I heard Eva say this morning there's 55 major funds in this room. And if they start to do that, what happens to your distribution, your customer connection? This too is not lost on large financial services players. Right? We're the biggest bank in the world. We've had tremendous success over the last 10 years. We've delivered record revenue, record profits every year for the last 10 years. But we realize that our business needs to change. What has allowed our firm to succeed this far may not be enough in the future. And so every year for the last 10 years, we've invested $10 billion a year in technology. We hire 50,000 technologists in the firm. And that's to continually challenge us and continually think about how we evolve. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, $6 trillion in assets, right? Think about that. The world's largest asset manager, $6 trillion assets, thinks about how they're going to build a technology solutions business that'll deliver 30% of their revenue from technology in the last 5 years. So we ought to be leaders in thinking about how to transform our organizations, rather caught reactively like Blockbuster and Netflix or the taxi company and Uber, who were too late to the game in trying to take a transformation strategy, a digital strategy. And if you think, if you kind of think all of this is real, how do you do all this? How do you actually get on the road to beginning a transformation journey? Or if you're on the way, how do we accelerate a transformation journey? So the first step, I think, is really figuring out what do you want to do, right? This road is filled with anxiety. And answering the question of what's most important to your organization, what will you prioritize now? What will you defer later is paramount and very, very important. If you think of technology as something that delivers alpha, where do you want to go first? Do you want to do product innovation that goes from charts and numbers and returns on various products to return-oriented, helping customers retire? Do you want to go to member-oriented outcome firms, simple and easy to understand products? Do you want to invest in investment innovation? Do you want to consistently seek ways, new technologies, new data, to get better return? And to do what Ian said, members want higher returns from their existing funds. Do you want ops innovation, make yourself more effective and more efficient and more productive for each member? Or do you want to change your experience, make it easier for customers to engage with you and navigate with you? You can't do all of it. Our resources, even with $10 billion of technology spend, are limited. And we're constantly thinking of how to prioritize, how to do things right. Look, none of this is easy, right? I have one of the best jobs in the firm where I get to see 100 clients every year. And every CEO and every chief investment officer and every board takes the meeting because they'd like to hear how JP Morgan and $10 billion thinks about technology. And we see customers do things right and do things wrong, right? One of the first and foremost mistakes that people make is they, in anxiety, in uncertainty, in not knowing what to do, create a flurry of activity within the organization. They send a few people to conferences. They hire a new CTO or a new chief digital officer. They go to Silicon Valley and do a bit of a petting zoo type of trip with a bunch of fintechs. They invest in technology companies. They have a McKinsey consultant or a JP Morgan digital expert come and talk to their management team. The board starts to invest in tech firms and they do a proof of concept in robotics or data. And all of a sudden, the management team says, we have a strategy. Excuse me, that's bogus. That is not a strategy, right? That is a lot of activity without purpose, and that is a lot of wasted resources, right? There's a lot of people who do this technology-led. Right? I have 0 days of technology experience in my 20+ years in financial services. My wife doesn't trust me to fix the internet at home, right? But we think of technology as a business problem and a business opportunity. And how do you do that differently? There's no significant management focus, or worse, there's focus on the wrong things. Over the last couple of days, I met a lot of companies that are investing in robotics, RPA. And my question to them was, how many people, how many processes will you automate? If you think of the management time, the management bandwidth, the proof of concept, evaluating vendors, coming up with a use case, putting a bot on, it's going to save you, what, a couple of basis points of cost? Why not take all of that and invest it in data architecture and data simplicity? And how might you do things differently from there? I think of unrealistic expectations. Innovation's hard. Domino's didn't go from being a pizza chain to selling 35% of its pizzas online within months. It took 10 years. We haven't invested all of that money 1 year. We do it year after year after year. And some of these things take a long time to deliver. So unrealistic expectations of what's the ROI, why can't I get it today? And then frankly, the last one I touch on is a lot of people think they need to do this themselves. A lot of people think this is going to come with a big bill. No, if you have the right strategic partners, if you have the right banks, brokers, custodians, technology companies as partners, they should be helping you do this. They should be bringing you their expertise, their experience, their network, their products and investments to help you accelerate some of that. So how do you do this differently and frankly get it right? Leadership from the top, right? Does the management team, does the trustees, does the CEO believe that? Do they live and breathe it in its gut? Do you feel like you need to do this? The role of technology has to change. Business technologists have never been more important. There's many people like me at our firm that think about our organization 5-10 years from now, our customer 5-10 years from now. And technology becomes an executive seat, a board seat. And I see some of the super funds doing that already, hiring new CIOs, CTOs, and putting them at the group level and forcing and nudging transformation in ways that hasn't been done before. There ought to be a willingness to try and experiment, right? You will fail. This doesn't come without failure. Our industry doesn't do well to failing. So don't fail repeatedly, but fail and pivot and learn. We failed plenty of times, right? And we've learned from that and implemented new programs in the future. There's an acquisition of talent. We talked about diversity. And that's not just in gender and race, but bringing new millennials to the table, bringing new skill sets to the table that are fundamentally outside financial services. We seek a lot of people in retail who also deal with customers and branches and multiple models and trying to think about how they do that. And then, frankly, Rome wasn't built in a day. So none of this is going to happen right away, but it's sticking to it. It's having resilience. It's having patience, and making sure that you have commitment to how you deliver that. So in closing, I'd like to offer you a bit of an exercise that you may think about doing with your leadership teams. What if on Monday morning you went back and you split your management team and leadership team in half? And half of you had to define your future. And half of you had to think about, over the next 5 to 7 years, how will you transform? How will you innovate? How will you be different? And how will you compete? And the other half of you, give them the task to attack and challenge your business. Their job is to put you out of business in the next 5 to 7 years. Their job is to fundamentally disrupt the way you work and steal your customers. Their job is to come and challenge every single thing that they do and have you open Pandora's box and think of the art of the possible. What would the results be? How would you think of innovation and transformation at your organization then? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Samir. That was fantastic. Activity without purpose. We've all seen that, haven't we? Looks very, very busy. Very, very busy. And I love that that was at the top of the list. But I love slow, deliberate, nail it and scale it. I think that's very interesting as well. I'm very pleased now to introduce Dr. Catriona Wallace, who's the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Flamingo AI. Catriona will speak for about 20 minutes as well, and then we would love your questions as they start to come through on the live poll question. Oh, not the live poll, the Q&A. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Hello and good afternoon. Whilst we're meeting here on this beautiful land in the Gold Coast, very important that I do acknowledge the traditional owners of the land here, the Yugambeh people, and I pay my respects to their ancestors, past, present, and their emerging leaders. And also very warm welcome and acknowledgement to any Indigenous people in the room with us today. So I love the fact that I'm on a panel with Samir, because Samir is from one of the giant US based companies, and Samir actually works down the road from me in New York, so at the slightly posher end than the startups work, but not too far away. So by way of background, I'm the founder and CEO of an artificial intelligence company. We're about 3 to 4 years old, originally Sydney-based, and then we moved to the US because we just didn't find that innovation or transformation in the Australian market was fast enough to support the emerging startup community in the 2016-2017 time. And I'll tell you some stories about that. So we moved to New York and we set up an office in New York, and we started engaging with financial services companies across the US. In 2016, we decided that we'd bring the company back onshore, and I had a personal agenda that I thought it was super important that we, the young innovators, the young startups, did not all go overseas, all go to San Francisco or go to New York, that we did have a presence here in Australia. So I brought the company back onshore, and we listed on the Australian Stock Exchange in November 2016. And we were I had a female chair at the time, the second only woman-led business to ever list on the Australian Stock Exchange, which was something we're very proud of and something equally disturbed about at the same time. And we were one of the very first, probably the first AI-based company on the Australian Stock Exchange. Now, if I compare that to the NASDAQ or any of the US stock exchanges, there are many, many companies in our field on those exchanges. So it occurred to me that we here in Australia are perhaps not thinking and not as advanced, particularly in financial services, as we see our cohorts in the US or in Europe doing. And I'm going to talk around some of the reasons why we're not really that innovative here in Australia. But to tell a little bit more so you understand my context of what I'm going to talk about today is what we actually do. So we're an artificial intelligence company. We've specialised in a machine learning platform for financial services companies, and we make software robots that can analyse large volumes of unstructured text like email data or conversational data. We provide virtual assistants that can guide customers through a financial services purchase or a service experience. And we provide a machine learning brain that powers other technologies. So one of the things we have learned in the Australian market is that innovation doesn't really work. And I'm going to start out and be as bold as saying that. And I'll tell you why that's the case. So when we think about innovation, which we think is a very old term, and I've been sitting on the Australian Financial Review Innovation Awards process as one of the judges since the year it started, which was 8 years ago. And we're seeing some progress in innovation, but if we think about the definition of innovation being a change that adds value, we can think that there are lots of things that are innovative. But what I think Samir and I share in common is that when we're talking about innovation, we're talking about significant step change transformation. So innovation, change that adds value, can be a whole bunch of very, very small things, but really what we want to do now is transformation, and I'm going to talk about why that is. And one of the things that I've learned with our US clients is that they've now changed the name of their innovation departments. So a lot of these big financial services companies don't have innovation divisions anymore. And that's because they've been largely unsuccessful. And the reason that they've been unsuccessful is that an innovation division is set up, or it could be a lab. It might be something they run internally. They might buy a warehouse with exposed bricks and raw beams down the road, hire in some young people that wear black T-shirts and red joggers, and they've got an innovation department. These people go out and hunt for the new next shiny thing. They bring it in, they do a trial, they do a proof of concept. We, the young startups, are sitting on this other side of the enterprise. We're super excited that these big companies are talking to us. We come in, we do a proof of concept or a trial. It could go really well, it could have average results, or it could fail. But where there is then the big chasm is between the innovation and the trialing of new things and then moving it into the business. Now, one of our US clients said to us, he was the chief operations officer, he said, Catriona, it's all well and good you young companies come and try and do innovation over here, but by the time you get over here to the big mothership, we're like a big ocean liner. We're already tanking down the ocean, and there's no way that any type of innovation is going to be effectual for us at a transformative level. And that is because our systems were always originally built to be closed systems that are self-perpetuating. So the systems of companies, large companies, traditional companies, build systems that are closed systems that are built to self-perpetuate and self-protect. So anytime we try and do an innovation and plug an innovation into these large systems, we have often the chief operations officer say to us, look, we can do small bits of improvement around the side, but you're never going to change the engine room because it is what it is now. So what does that mean? Is innovation actually a really dated and old topic that you should move on from? I think so, yes. And Samir and I can happy to discuss this and debate this later. What we really believe needs to happen is this notion of transformation. And what we're finding with our US clients is that where they don't have innovation divisions or labs anymore, they have transformation strategy with a cross-section of key leaders on it, with some external people involved as well, so advisors who are responsible for the transformation of the business. So why are we talking about transformation and not just small step improvements that innovation would have looked after? So I have a view on this, and this is predominantly influenced because I work in the artificial intelligence field. So let me kind of give you the lay of the land for us. So if we think of artificial intelligence as being software that can mimic human intelligence, it was originally invented or coined at Dartmouth University in 1956, so 60, 70 years ago. It's been around for a very, very long time. And artificial intelligence can be further defined as any type of software that has rules, is rules-based, is template matching, is if and then logic, or is machine learning based. Machine learning being machines that can learn in their own right. So 50, 60 years have passed, and finally we're at a stage and a point in time now where we are absolutely, without question, going to see fundamental transformation, not only of the way we do business, but of the way we do life, the way we look after our children, the way we look after our homes, the way we drive. And here are some of the statistics that we see coming down the line now. Gartner, one of the big IT analysts, looking at 40% of jobs in the financial services sector automated by the year 2026. 40% of jobs automated by machines like my company makes by the year 2026, so 7 years away. 30% of all customer interactions conducted by machines or robots within the next 3 years. Within the next 3 years, a majority of organisations having around 50 different bots or machine learning-based programs that are actually conducting work on behalf of humans. $1.2 trillion of value moving from those companies that don't have AI to those companies that do have AI. 6.2 billion hours of work done by machines instead of humans in the next 2 years globally. A fundamental transformative change is coming. So it's well beyond what we think of the traditional innovation. And why is it coming now? Well, we've got a couple of factors at play. Computational power, the existence of big data, super important factors that have meant that we're now at a time that we can actually do massive transformative innovation with AI. But more important to that is this. We're coming to a stage in history where the traditional models of human capital and labour are grinding to a halt. And if you think about how businesses are set up, they're still, regardless of how innovative we think they are, based on industrial models. We have chief executives and chief executive officers. Why are they officers and who are they executing and why are they chiefs? It's ridiculous. It's a military term. When we go to marketing, we have marketing segments, we have customers in pipelines, we brand customers, we have them targeted, we have captive customers. All of this language is traditional military or industrial language, and this is how we still communicate and run our businesses. So this is industrial models. Humans, however, are based on behavioural models and absolutely were never designed to work effectively with businesses. And that's why today we have royal commissions. That's why today we still, when we measure customer experience, see that it's average to poor when they're dealing with their superannuation provider or dealing with their bank or their insurer, let alone their telco or their government. So these models are now grinded, hold enormously difficult for companies to grow. So again, with some of our US clients, we'll often deal with the chief marketing officer. And in 3 occasions in the last 6 months, when I've been talking to US-based CMOs, they've said this: we put all our money into hoping digital was going to be the transformative power to really innovate us out of a low growth area. And you know what? It really hasn't happened. In fact, digital has almost failed in many regards, certainly failed to live up to the expectations that we all had of it. On average, insurers generate 15% of their revenue globally from digital. It's 15%. It was predicted to be 45%. It was predicted to be 3 times higher than what it is actually figured out to do. So we're at a time now where innovation hasn't really worked terribly well, and transformation is the new concept to be considering, and the transformative powers are already at play. So if we think of, again, the 2 big companies that are doing AI machine learning, one is Google, one is Baidu. Baidu being the largest AI company in the world out of China, China being the largest AI country in the world, followed by India. The head of Baidu compares this transformative time, the coming of AI, as to the same effect that electricity had when the Industrial Revolution started. Same power as electricity will be the transformative power of artificial intelligence. And the head of Google compares the coming of AI, even more exaggerated in his thinking, to being the same power as the invention of fire. So I thought about this because I'm super interested in the philosophy that sits behind technology. And I thought, why am I not thinking that AI is just smart algorithms that do analytics? Why are these big AI thinkers comparing this to a power source? How can it possibly be powering things? So I thought about it more, read a beautiful book by Brian Christensen called The Most Human, What AI Teaches Us About Being Alive. Read the Accenture book on human plus machine. And I came to this conclusion, that artificial intelligence will come as this transformative power to do two things. It will sit as a layer on top of your legacy systems in order to amplify what you're already doing. So if we hark back to what I said, the COOs say, Catriona, it will never change because the mothership's left, it's a big tanker, we're never going to change, it's all closed. Layer AI over it. Have AI technology reach into your existing systems, come together, do smart things, whether it's predictive analytics, computer vision, machine learning-based robots that conduct tasks, whether it's chatbots. They sit on top of your existing systems and they amplify what you already do, your technology and your data. And then with regard to humans, we know that these machines will start to augment your humans. And we're looking at two terms that we use, HAVA, human-assisted virtual assistants, and HAMA, human-assisted machine assistants, where we have humans and machines working together in the workplace. And so the AI starts to augment your humans. Now, I shared in an earlier session today that we have a number of our US clients who we help them do the what's called socio-technical org design. So this is where you build org charts, you have humans, you have HAVA or HAMA workers, the people that are working with the robots, and then you have the robots themselves. And these robots are not scary things like you'll see in Terminator or Westworld. They're actually not robots at all. They're just software. I don't even know why we call them robots. Don't even know why we call them human names. But actually, I do know. I'll talk about that in a minute. They have digital labour is what it's called. So we're seeing this massive transformation coming with AI looking to amplify your systems and augment your humans, and it's coming very, very quickly. So the industries that are set to be automated are retail, hospitality, tourism, then financial services. So we'll see insurance, banking, investment, all at the front top 10 industries that will be automated by machine learning and artificial intelligence. Following that, you'll have telcos, utilities, and then way down the track, you'll have government. So this is coming now at a very, very rapid rate. I've already shared what the levels that it's coming at and the degree to which we will see those companies that are powered by AI really outperform others. And Elon Musk is the most eccentric AI builder. But he essentially says that companies that have AI will crush the companies that don't have it. The companies that have AI will crush those that don't have it. And he doesn't even really like AI, despite the fact that he's building it. And as most of you know, he's building the SpaceX and space stations because he thinks AI will actually do a terrible thing and will destroy the world. So he's building another place for people to go live. So in this transformative time, things can go really well, and I'm a huge believer in it, and I'm glad that most of you were excited about what AI can do. Some of you are sitting on the fence, and some of you are worried about it. But we're in an unprecedented point in time where when you're thinking about your transformative journey for your organisation, We know that artificial intelligence will play a really, really significant role in doing that. And as you go through that journey, two other really important things to think about, which pretty much now don't exist, certainly not here in Australia. What are the human rights and the ethical frameworks that we do innovation or transformation in? So my very final point I would love you to do is just do a quick exercise. I sort of mentioned to Samir that I might do this when he said, oh, do you do something with Google and people see where bias is already built in an AI? And I would love you just to do this. Have you got your mobile phones? Please get it out, and please just Google unprofessional hairstyles and hit images, and we'll get anyone to volunteer what they see. It's talking about ethics, we're talking about human rights. You've just Googled unprofessional hairstyles, hit images. Who would like to volunteer what you've seen? All women, nationalities, colour, race? Coloured women with maybe afro hairstyles? Yeah, okay. Equally, if you Google the best CEOs, the best leaders, the most intelligent people in the world, you'll predominantly get white males. So, ladies and gentlemen, the train has already left the station with bias built into this code. As part of any transformation gender agenda, absolutely please consider ethics and human rights, because we're facing a world where there's already a few challenges around getting gender equality or equality and diversity into our lives. We're now looking at coding, hard coding into the world, a whole other level of gender bias and minority bias, unless we do this with the frameworks of ethics and human rights. Thanks very much.
The Best Leaders search threw up one woman, Mother Teresa, and the rest were men, including Adolf Hitler. So I think I'm really still terrified. That's still my answer at the end of the session. So there's lots of questions that have come through now. What specific innovative technologies do you recommend funds can implement to enhance the member experience? Is it that simple?
Yeah, so I'll start there first. Number one, I love that Catriona started with. There's a lot of debate that her and I would have, and perhaps we'll continue this after the session. I fundamentally believe in the transformative power of AI, but I'll believe in AI when my computer continually recognizes my printer and doesn't say printer not found. So I think we're a ways away from 40% of jobs being transformed and all of us looking for second careers. Look, I think foundational to what any of us need to do to implement any technology is data. And data is hard, and it's not sexy. And it's the operational nature of going out and getting data and making sure you have the right information on client data. Many of us complain that clients don't want to give us data. How do I get the data when they change jobs? But the reality is, if you give people a reason to give you the data, tell you why they're giving it to you and what you will do with it and what you will return, people are willing to give you data. I am willing to give every application access to where I am when I use it, because it gives me better recommendations and better navigation and better taxi service. So if you give people a sense of what they get, you can get it. This notion of getting people better design and better experiences, making user-centric journeys. You shouldn't need 43 clicks to go get your financial statement from your super fund. Or your mobile application shouldn't just give you static information, it should allow you to engage. So, think data, visualization, think integration with your broader financial life. Those are places that you can get quick value for your organization and your members.
There's a question here, Catriona, excuse me, that large tech companies are held up of examples, and they tend to have problems with labour exploitation, anti-competitive practices. How do you get the technological innovation but keep that culture out?
Yeah, well, one of the stories I've told recently is Amazon. So Amazon being one of the most successful companies in the world, Samir mentioned them previously, they have had a challenge with a AI implementation that they did that was used to recruit new members into their business, and it ended up, they closed it down. There's big news about a month ago. They've closed it down because they realised it was already biased and recruiting only, or essentially only males into their into business. So they shut it down. Very publicly embarrassing. So the culture within these large tech companies, we see huge problems with even Google, and all of the ones that we held out were going to be the new models and the new models of ethics and behaviour and Airbnb similar, all sorts of Uber similar, all sorts of problems even in the new companies with culture and responsibility. Facebook with cyber security challenges. So the interesting thing is, even though I was a bit hard on the old traditional companies, we're seeing a lot of the new companies, when they're getting to scale, also significantly challenged with systems and with culture, with gender diversity issues in a new realm. So there's certainly not companies to hold up as role models of ideally where we need to transform to.
But arguably, Samir, Facebook didn't know the rules of journalism. I know the rules of journalism. I look what they're doing going, that's not going to end well. So these people know what they're doing, right? They have a clear idea of what their purpose is. So presumably then some of the ethical traps are less likely in that they are known knowns rather than unknown unknowns in that case. So at what point can you state what is the cost-benefit outcome to layering AI over existing core systems?
Yeah, look, I think Facebook has had a series of challenges, and maybe at the core of it all was they took privacy, secrecy, and their role in the information economy as very laxed. Right, I think most of our organizations, because we're heavily regulated, because we have cultural practices within our organizations that are often way more risk averse than what regulators even allow us. This notion of what can you do, but what should you do? Just because it's legal doesn't mean you should do it. I think that's a guiding force for many financial institutions, if not culturally, because we've been slapped on the wrist several times by regulators. And the Royal Commission report will certainly make sure that we don't take any crazy risks over the next few years. I think if we do it responsibly, if we keep the customer at the center, if we try to answer the question of who are we doing it for and what are we trying to get for the end customer and member, I think we'll hopefully act in the right ways.
Catriona, a question off the back of that. Thoughts about AI and machine learning disrupting traditional investment research process that many of these funds utilise currently?
Yeah, well, it's certainly coming. So we already know, and a number of our clients we're working with, looking and trialling machine learning and artificial intelligence with regard to supporting analysis of risk, predicting fraud, anticipating. So one request we've had from one of our US clients was to do an analysis of all the SEC filings in order to be able to predict who would be a defaulter, who would not. So we see it coming because we haven't really seen huge success from robo-advice and robo-investment as such. That kind of was moderately useful. But coming on top of that now, I can absolutely say as a fact, will be machines that are doing investment advice, investment calculations, risk, fraud, all of that coming very quickly.
That will need a human, in other words, the machine has done all of this for me, assessed all of these risks that I have anticipated and asked the machine to figure out. So it's a labour-saving idea. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about actual artificial intelligence?
Right.
So here's your balance fund.
Yeah, so there's two ways of looking at it. So one is that the machines can run and do some of the calculations or predictions, and then there is data science as a service. So data science as a service is people within the business using the tools and manipulating the tools. Now, what we're very worried about is what are the regulations on the algorithms? So at the moment, there's no regulations. We as AI providers, nobody regulates us. There's no human rights. There's no ethics framework.
That's terrifying.
Terrifying.
I told you it was terrifying.
So quick note on that. There is a super famous guy, Professor Alan Finkel, who's working at the moment, I think it's coming out June, July, with an AI certification program.
Our Alan Finkel.
That's the one. Yeah. As an AI certification program to get companies like my own and other AI providers to actually have their algorithms and their platforms certified, which would have these various frameworks in it. But at the moment, absolutely no regulation.
Wow.
Ellen, can I chime in here for one second?
Sure.
Look, I actually don't believe that the race is man or machine, right? I think it's man plus machine.
Right.
Like, we think financial services, financial products, retirement advice, wealth planning, capital markets, banking is a human-delivered service for a long time to come. But you can use AI, you can use machine learning, you can use intelligence to augment the human to deliver better products to your end customer. So all of the money we spend is how do we make our salespeople, our traders, our product people better in serving our customers and delivering all of that intelligence and insights to clients through that. And if we're able to do that, we produce better results for, again, each of our customers and for the organization.
Yeah.
And I agree, rather than trying to do it yourself in some brick wall and hoodies, right? It's better if we kind of leverage partners that, frankly, have a core expertise in this. You don't go to technology companies to get retirement advice, so don't trust a retirement company to build AI platforms themselves.
Okay, we are out of time. Can I just ask, there's a whole lot of questions around this theme. Do either of you see a stranded workforce? Because why are we talking about retirement savings if the humans don't have jobs?
Well, look, I don't think that there's going to be a massive job loss going forward, although there are a number of futurists who do. And if we take back to certain similar times in history where we've seen some disruptive force in place, so even a couple of years ago, 10 years ago in Australia, where we suddenly went, we're going to outsource and offshore all our call centres to the Philippines and India, and there's massive outcry and politicians involved and people worried. In fact, for every dollar that we offshored, Australian GDP generated $1.46, and
Right.
It wasn't massive job loss. So we do believe that there are new roles being created. We have brain trainers, we have data journalists, we have brain auditors, and we've not yet seen any displacement of jobs based in our clients. However, the other thing I do know, and I just do want a note of caution, we hear a lot about this, we're augmenting humans and it will be human and machine. Yes, that's nice and that makes everyone comfortable. But actually what I see in practice is a company start off doing human machine, the sooner they can get to machine only, the better, the happier they are. So there's a little bit of rhetoric, and if that's the case, then we should expect job loss. And my role as a leader in this industry is to make sure that we have training programs to start to equip people coming through. Because a very scary thing, Ellen, is that 90% of the jobs that will be displaced by machines, such as my company makes, will be women and minority groups.
Yeah. Samir, answer to that one?
Yeah, so I am more of an optimist on this, right? I think we've had a manufacturing revolution where people thought multiple jobs would go away. We then had an industrial revolution that people thought multiple jobs would go away, and now we're in a technology revolution and people think multiple jobs will go away. The reality is technology revolutions take a long time to come, right? And much longer than most people expect. That said, when the impact happens, it's also higher, but new jobs emerge. Advice, all of these things have created new roles and new professions for people. So while we may see certain activities automated, entire jobs, I'm sure 20% of what I do may get automated, but 100% of my job and my role going away would be difficult. News media is a great example of bots writing a lot of summaries and articles in sports news. I don't think that the right firms have had massive displacements.
Please thank Samir and Catriona very much, and I'll ask them to